Hi, Sally-Shakti, your visionary writing guide, and welcome to Tarot and Astrology for Visionary Writers from Monday, the 28th of August to Sunday, the 3rd of September, 2023. And no, there isn't something wrong with your speakers. You can probably hear from my voice that I have been sick for the last few days, and I am recovering now, but you can still hear the congestion in my voice around my nose and throat. Yeah, what else I want to mention? That at the same time as being sick, I also experienced the arrival of my bleed. And I was wondering where the pain from the bleed was. It was always in the background whilst being sick was the most prominent physical experience I was having. And today, as the sickness is receding and my body is clearing that, and really feels like purging and upgrading, the pain from my bleed has now arrived. So that's what I'm present with as I sit here and record this video for you today. So in a way, I'd like to make this quite short, but I do have quite a few things that I want to talk about. So we'll just move through what's moving through as we go. So in today's video, what I like to talk about primarily is the energy of the upcoming full moon in Pisces that's happening at 7 degrees of Pisces on Thursday, the 31st of August here in the British Isles at 2:35 in the morning. It's also a supermoon, and it is conjunct Saturn, the moon conjunct Saturn just the night before. And Moon and Saturn will be traveling through the night sky together on that evening. So these are the energies I want to be talking about today. The full moon in Pisces, it's relational dance with Saturn throughout the whole of this year. And I also want to briefly touch on Uranus going retrograde in Taurus this week, and very briefly perhaps the upcoming Jupiter retrograde that starts next week, also in Taurus. And of course, what all of those energies mean for you and for us as visionary writers and creatives, alive and practicing in the world at this time. And I am noticing that as I speak, it's putting quite a lot of pressure on my sacral. So there's quite a lot of pain coming through as I'm speaking. So what I want to say about the full moon, and I've got some cards for us to work with as well. I've got 3 different decks to work with this full moon in Pisces energy, because it feels like a really significant energy. The full moon in Pisces is an energy of endings and surrender and letting go. It feels like a big, with it being a supermoon as well, it's a big energy. It's close to the earth. We're going to feel it very strongly in our collective energy field and in our personal energy fields. The moon is our closest personal celestial body that we feel at a soul and energetic and physical level. And it's going to be a strong one. You might already be feeling it. The full moon in Pisces is a time of endings, release, surrender, letting go. It's a time also of karmic endings. Pisces being the last sign in the zodiac, it's a moon of completion as we complete a full cycle of the full moon lunations through the zodiac. And we come to real cosmic endings, karmic endings. The moon in Pisces takes us out of our ordinary physical reality, and it can take us into a space of much greater openness and receptivity to what is beyond our ordinary earthly embodied consciousness. We can have heightened intuition and spiritual or psychic experiences around this time of the full moon in Pisces, because there's such a strong energy of that celestial, otherworldly Pisces energy that is coming through to us, into our own personal energy fields, and illuminated by this full moon energy. You may find that it's a powerful time for channeling, for automatic writing, or for journaling, or for journeying. All of these things, anything that supports you to tap into your intuition, your intuitive side, your intuitive practices, to let go of the more rigid forms and structures that we have been perhaps conditioned to. I talk about this a lot in my videos, that as visionary writers and creatives, we are here to create new forms and structures, and to bring in new forms and new structures through our work and our lives and our creative practices. So this week would be a good time to open up to more intuitive and embodied forms of practice, and opening your channels to receive new downloads for what is coming through for you from beyond our personal and earthly experience. What are we bringing in? Because as we complete this cycle, this full moon in Pisces, I feel also like on an evolutionary level and on a cosmic level, we're really invited to let go more and more of what we've been holding and carrying with us from the age of Pisces, as we attune more and step forward more to embody more of the frequencies of the age of Aquarius that we are here to embody in our practices and share with others through our creative practices and processes. This is a time to open and receive. Pisces is very receptive. It's about that surrender. It's about letting go. It's about not pushing things forward, opening to receive, really working intuitively, really journaling or journeying or channeling, and receiving what wants to come through in your creative practice. That, again, as I say, again, is both a form of letting go of the old structures that we've been conditioned to, and a way of opening to receive new forms, new structures, new intuitions, new guidance, new cosmic light codes and downloads that want to be embodied through your creative practices, through your visionary writing and creative practices. One journaling practice that I would love to recommend is a form of what I call pre-writing practice, where we move the pen intuitively across the page. It's non-verbal, it's pre-verbal. We move the pen intuitively across the page and let it move where it wants to move. And this can also be a very physical practice. We can feel into the physical connection between the pen, our hand, the page, our bodies. It can be a very meditative practice as we move rhythmically and feel that physical connection, that physical movement. It can help us to clear and release old structures and ideas that have been stuck in our bodies. It's a great way of getting old patterns out of our bodies and onto the page to release them. And it can also be a way of opening up our channels to new intuition and new inspiration that wants to come through. And if you're not sure what that might look like, it can look like this, just moving the pen across the page in any way, in any direction, and for as long as you feel that you need to. And as I say, this can be a process of pre-verbal processing. It's getting energies, moods, thoughts, emotions, rhythms, patterns, structures out onto the page that perhaps have been held in our bodies and are ready to be released. It can be a way of processing old patterns, wounds, even traumas, if you also have some support with you to help you through that processing. It can be a way of, it can be a meditative practice, it can be a very intuitive practice, and a way of tuning in to a space of more openness and receptivity before you begin to write formally or to create formally. And perhaps when you come to your writing or creative practice, your formal writing or creative practice after a pre-writing practice, you might find that there is more space, more receptivity, more intuitive guidance, and perhaps even new structures and inspirations that want to come through. And you can take a look at some videos on my website where it says 3 free videos. You can get the 3 free videos that will talk you through the 3-part writing practice, the writing and thriving practice that starts with the pre-writing practice and takes you through to through pre-writing, free writing, and focused writing that might help you to move into your writing practice through this time of the Pisces full moon. I would like to talk about the dance between Pisces, especially the moon in Pisces and Saturn in Pisces, that has been really active and activated throughout the whole of 2023. So if we go back to the new moon on the 20th of February 2023, right at the beginning of the year, Imbolc in the northern hemisphere, Lammas in the southern hemisphere. And again, we are working with that dance between Imbolc and Lammas, which I spoke about back in early August on one of my videos then. We've got this polarization between the Imbolc and the Lammas energy that also shows up in this dance between the new moon and the full moon in Pisces. So in February, we have the new moon in Pisces. And then in August, we have the full moon in Pisces. And so every full moon can be the culmination of, and the coming to fruition or the coming to illumination of that particular monthly cycle. So this full moon would be the fruition and the culmination of what began with the new moon in, I think we had the new moon in Leo, on the 16th of August. And our moons are a little bit reversed at the moment because the new moon in Leo is related to the full moon in Aquarius, and the full moon in Pisces is related to the new moon in Virgo. Usually the new moon would come first and then the full moon. They've swapped for a period of time, so they're a little bit out of sync to my brain. But each full moon can be seen as the culmination or the illumination of the energies of a particular monthly cycle that begins with the previous new moon. So we can look at the intentions that we set on the Leo new moon and look at how those intentions are being illuminated now. But each full moon also is the balancing and the culmination of its own new moon 6 months earlier. And again, we have that balance point between the hemispheres, and we have that balance point between the seasons and the cycles of the year. So in February, we began the year earlier in the year with a full moon, with a new moon in Pisces, just in the season of Imbolc. And now in the season of Lammas, we have the culmination or the illumination of the new moon intentions that we set back in February. So think about the seeds you were planting at Imbolc. Think about the intentions you set at that February new moon, and what is coming to fruition or coming to illumination for you now in relation to February's new moon in Pisces. This is a 6-month cycle, and we can of course make it a 12-month cycle if we go all the way forward to next year's new moon in Pisces. So this is the midway point of a 12-month cycle between this year's new moon in Pisces and next year's new moon in Pisces, for example. All of the moons have this relationship. But we started in February with a new moon in Pisces, and that was at 1 degree of Pisces, and it was a powerful time to set intentions for the year ahead, because then we had in March this year Saturn entering Pisces, and Saturn crossed that new moon point on the 19th and 20th of March, or if you take 1 degree as a total, it's about 2 weeks either side. So for about 2 weeks, Saturn was on that 1 degree point of Pisces, activating that new moon energy. Now, why Saturn is important here, not only because there's a lot of astrology that I'm going to talk to you about, but what Saturn helps us to do is ground that energy of the new moon, of the moon in Pisces, because when the moon is in Pisces, we're at our most open, we're at our most expansive, we're at our most surrendered and receptive. And that's very beautiful, but it can also be very ungrounded, very unpractical. Saturn in Pisces at the moment is helping us to ground those Pisces energies, to anchor the new light codes and frequencies and downloads that we're receiving, so that as we release those Age of Pisces structures and we begin to embody and co-create with more of the Age of Aquarius structures that we're bringing in through our creative practice, that we're opening to receive, that we're beginning to embody, we're beginning to anchor in through our creative practice, Saturn is actually helping us to do that. Saturn is helping us to anchor those new frequencies in the material world through our creative practice. And Saturn has been doing that since March this year, and will be continuing to support us to do that for the next 3 years. And that's also important because a lot of the astrological energies that began in 2020 move us through to 2026, and that is a completion period, and it's really a time where I feel that we are quite prominently undoing the structures of the Age of Pisces and opening to embody new forms and structures for the Age of Aquarius. And as visionary writers and creatives, we're bringing that into form, into the material world through our practices and our creativity, whatever form that takes. So Saturn is in this dance with the moon in Pisces. Certainly this year, I haven't really looked forward into next year's astrology, but Saturn is in this dance with the moon in Pisces this year, really helping us to anchor the wider cosmic energies that are flowing through and wanting to be embodied in our world through our own lives and creative practices. Remember that Pisces is opposite with Virgo. So Virgo is that energy of embodiment. What is open and expansive and receptive in Pisces wants to be embodied in the energy of Virgo. And we have the sun in Virgo. We have the sun in Virgo, which is why we've got the full moon in Pisces, because it's opposite. We've got the moon in Pisces opposite the sun in Virgo. So we've got this relationship again between what is wanting to, what our soul wants to open up to receive, and then what wants to be embodied in the material world in practical form through our lives and our creative practices. And Saturn is really supporting that dance for us this year. So February, new moon in Pisces, we had a time for powerful intention setting for the year ahead. March, Saturn enters Pisces and supports the energy of manifesting those dreams, those visions, those new frequencies that we are downloading and embodying in our creative practice. Saturn is now retrograde in Pisces and is coming back to meet the moon. So when we have the full moon in Pisces, on Thursday this week. We also have, it's going to be conjunct Saturn. So the moon and Saturn are going to be together whilst it's the full moon in Pisces. So we've also got that Saturn energy very much supporting us to embody the inspiration and the intuition and the practical steps that need to be taken so that we can be open to receive more intuition, more inspiration, and bring that through into form in the world through our creative practice. In order to be open to download and receive, we also need to have our roots very deeply and firmly anchored into the earth so that we can fully open and expand. I've been doing a lot of work around and working with people who are very much trauma informed, embodied and somatic practitioners. And our capacity to open, our capacity to receive is entirely dependent on our capacity to feel safe and to feel secure and to feel rooted and strong. So this dance between Pisces and Virgo is really being supported by Saturn in Pisces at the moment. So Saturn comes in to help us anchor through this full moon in Pisces, and again to help us to bring those downloads and intuitions forward and through into the material world through our visionary writing and creative practices. We're going to have more of this dance continuing on the 2nd and 3rd of October this year. Saturn, whilst retrograde, will again meet up with the Pisces new moon point, 1 degree of Pisces. So it's coming back across 1 degree of Pisces. It's going to reactivate those intentions that we set back in February. So what's happening now is the energy of those intentions is being illuminated through the full moon. What are we still working on? What still needs to be released? What still needs to be realigned in order for us to open to the new downloads that are there for us and to bring them into form through our visionary writing and creative practice? Those elements are being illuminated this week. And then as we move forward into October, early October, Saturn retrograde reactivates that that Pisces new moon, those intentions from February back in the beginning of the year. And then in early December, Saturn going direct, Saturn moving forward again, goes back across for the final time that Pisces new moon point. So that Pisces new moon point, 1 degree of Pisces, has been activated 4 times this year from February to December. That's the whole of this year, more or less. Pisces new moon in February, Saturn entering Pisces in March. We've got this extra piece now this week, Saturn and the moon conjunct with the Pisces full moon, illuminating that path, illuminating that vision. And then we have in October Saturn coming back to reactivate, and then in December Saturn going forward to finally put the final practical steps into activating that path. So is there something that you've been trying to manifest for the whole of this year? That might be why this dance between Saturn and the moon in Pisces is really giving us the opportunity to go deep into our trust, our surrender, our grounding, our security, our safety, and taking the practical steps to actually embody and bring in those new visions into form through our lives and through our visionary writing and creative practices. Now, what else I want to say about the full moon in Pisces? The moon card in the tarot is ruled by Pisces. And I want to show you from the Light Seers Tarot. It's this figure of a female figure who is fully surrendering to the plunge, entirely within the sphere of the water, entirely within the element of water, and fully surrendering to the plunge. There are two dogs here howling at the full moon. And that element of surrender, the moon card and this full moon in Pisces can have an energy of the unknown. We can feel very perhaps uncomfortable as we move through and into the unknown in our lives. Very much answers may not be clear. The next steps might not be clear. And there's a sense of, at worst, drowning in this uncertainty. But if we can let go into surrender, if we can let go of the fight to need to know at this time and surrender, then what had perhaps felt like drowning can begin to feel like floating, like free floating, and riding with this energy of being in the unknown, moving through the unknown. And I know that that's can be a very, very uncomfortable place to be, and it can be a place of fear. When I look at the moon card from the elemental power tarot deck, can't see that very well because of the light. Again, it's the moon shining, it's a reflection of the moon shining on the water, and there's a path out of the water, but there is a pumpkin head here. They call it a jack-o'-lantern, like a carved pumpkin face, and it's not clear whether that is an invitation to go forward or a warning sign to stay away. This full moon, excuse me, this full moon in Pisces can bring us into our fear and bring us into a fear of the unknown and a fear of not knowing what steps to take next. And when I look finally at the Moonology Oracle cards by Yasmin Boland, the full moon in Pisces card says balance, spirituality, and practicality. And I feel that that's where Saturn is really coming in to support us. And that's, of course, where that anchoring and oppositional energy of Virgo is also supporting us to bring in and trust in the practical steps as we move forward through the unknown, as we surrender to the unknown and open ourselves to greater receptivity of what has hitherto been unknown, because we are undoing the old structures and channeling new forms through our creative practice and process. I've really spoken a lot, and it's taking quite a lot from me to be speaking this much. But there are a few more things I would like to say about this week and the energies moving forward, which I'll touch on briefly now. This week, Uranus goes retrograde in Taurus, and you may experience, alongside all of the unknowns and the surrender and the letting go of the Pisces full moon, you may be experiencing over the next 5 months between now and next January some sudden transformations which may feel shocking, may feel surprising, perhaps uncomfortable at first, but will be almost certainly realigning you with what is more in alignment with your path and your practice from here going forward. Remember, we're in this phase, we're in this process over many years of letting go of the old structures of the age of Pisces and moving forward into embodying more and more of the new structures of the age of Aquarius. And none of us knows what those are yet. We're in the process, all of us, of undoing, releasing, surrendering, letting go what we have known, and opening to receive what is as yet unknown. So again, the more we can feel grounded and safe, the more we can open to those new possibilities. And again, with Uranus being retrograde in Taurus, Taurus wants stability. And whilst Uranus is coming through to create disruption in the areas of our lives where we may want more stability, the more that we can breathe into ourselves and anchor ourselves into our breath and our always available and abundant connection with source, the more we may be able to support and nourish ourselves through these challenging and difficult times. And so Uranus might be, over the next few months, opening you up to change in ways that will bring you ultimately integrated alignment with your practice and your path going forward. But it may not necessarily immediately be clear what the outcome of that will be. It may be that interim steps are necessary as you move forward through these times of uncertainty. What I do want to say about that is that Uranus will be retrograde in Taurus from 23 to, I think, 21 or 19. I forgot the numbers. Let me just have a quick look at the degree. Oh, it's not going to tell me so far. 19 is 20. Yeah, okay. So it's 23 to 19 degrees of Taurus. And so in mid-November to early December, we will have Uranus retrograde coming through 20 degrees of Taurus. And that will be squaring the Venus star point at 20 degrees of Leo. So when you recently had the opportunity to set new intentions, especially around self-love, self-worth, your creativity, your self-expression, and I also likened that to setting intentions for pleasure, self-love, pleasure, and playfulness. Those intentions and what we have called in, what we've brought through at that Venus star point, what we've opened up to at the Venus star point, will be squared by Uranus retrograde in Taurus around mid-November to early December. And what that suggests to me is that there will be changes happening that will, again, put you on a more aligned path, where you have, especially with Uranus retrograde in Taurus, Taurus is all about self-worth. That Venus star point in Leo was about self-love and creative self-expression. So we've got those two energies now. Change is going to be happening, change is going to come, that will put us on a path that is more aligned with our own self-love, self-worth, and our passions and creative practices. That again moves forward as Uranus goes direct. That comes back through again mid-March to early April next year. So again, this is a long-term energy that's playing out. So how that may show up is that mid-November to December, some aspects of our lives are taken away. Some structures are removed and dissolved and undone, that are no longer serving us in terms of our increased self-worth, self-love, creative self-expression. There may be some removals, some perhaps shock or surprising removals from our lives that put us on a different path that may not become clear and firmly established until perhaps mid-March to early April 2024, when Uranus goes direct and then moves on from those degree points. So we're in a period, perhaps a 6-month period now, of change and transformation, where ultimately the direction is to come into greater alignment with our creative practice and our self-love, self-worth, perhaps in ways that bring our creative processes and practices more into alignment with our increased self-love, self-worth, and creative self-expression. But that is perhaps going to be unfolding for us over the next 6 or so months between now and April 2024, when it perhaps will become clearer and more firmly established for us to move forward in that new energy of self-worth, self-love, and creative self-expression. And And the final point I want to make is that, so where Uranus in Taurus is also, of course, working with the collective, and we're seeing elements, especially around money and finances, shaking up. I feel intuitively that as Jupiter goes retrograde beginning next week, that will only increase and expand and exacerbate. Jupiter is the energy of expansion. Jupiter is the energy of abundance and increase. Jupiter going retrograde also in Taurus, I think, is going to heighten and increase those changes, those structural, financial, economic changes that we will be seeing playing out in the wider world, beginning with Uranus retrograde this week and exacerbating with Jupiter retrograde beginning next week, right through until the end of this year and early 2024. But all of these things ultimately will be working to bring us into greater alignment with what is our true worth, our true value, and how our creative practice can be part of our self-worth, our self-love, our creative self-expression, and our value in the world, our service to the world. Okay, so having said all that, I feel like I actually want to grab a card for this week. So I'm just going to do that now. Okay, so I just grabbed the Light Seer's Tarot. For me, it's the easiest to read. I am going to pick up a copy of the Smith Rider-Waite. I like the black and white line copy, so that's the deck I'm gonna treat myself to with some money that I received from my mother for my birthday. But I like this deck, and I turn to it most often because because the human characters actually do help to make it more easily readable for me. Sometimes the other ones are a little bit more obscure, and when I'm feeling like I'm feeling today, I need as much help and support as I can get. It's got to be as easy as possible. So the card to support us through this week is the Page of Pentacles. A really beautiful earthy card. Pages are earth energy, and Pentacles is the earth suit. So this is really, really grounding. It's a time to put our roots into the earth, and I you know, I'm feeling the Virgo energy, the sun in Virgo. I'm feeling Saturn coming through. I heard recently from some training that I was on and on an astrology program that I was listening to, that Virgo is co-ruled by Mercury and Chiron, and that makes a lot of sense to me too. So I really want to welcome in the energy of Chiron into this conversation, because Chiron is a really earthy, like a shamanic kind of earth medicine healer. Chiron's not only about the wounds, Chiron's also about the healing. And so we have that energy of Virgo, of Chiron, of Saturn, really supporting us and inviting us to anchor. In this card, it might be difficult for you to see, but in this card, the page actually has physical roots coming down out of their foot into the mandala, into the earth. So it's really a very, very beautiful invitation for us to stay grounded this week, because with that big energy of the supermoon in Pisces, it can be very, very easy to lose our footing. So the invitation is to stay grounded, to breathe deep of the nourishment at the center of the earth, and to really pull that and draw that up the spine into our own roots and into the base of the spine, so that we can feel nourished, supported, rooted, and secure in ourselves and in our always available connection to the source, so that whatever is happening to us and around us in the outside world, we maintain that connection to our own stability, our own center, and our center at the belly of the earth that is holding us, carrying us, nurturing us, supporting us. Does the Page of Pentacles want to say anything else? It's about creativity. It's about creating from that place of grounded nourishment, grounded support. So as we call in and allow ourselves to open to those cosmic energies of this supermoon in Pisces, we can stay grounded in our practice and put one foot in front of the other, very much connected to the center of the earth as we breathe and we make marks on the page in a very physical way that will support us to stay grounded and to release the old structures that are ready to be let go. So I spoke a lot more than was necessary today. I'm feeling it a lot. And so thank you all for being here with me and sitting through to the end. I always appreciate you being here. You can download the 3-part practice videos on my website. There will be, I will write more about the 3-part writing practice, or I have written more about the 3-part writing practice in the forthcoming Visionary Writers mini guide. And of course, you can always get in touch with me at on Instagram and Facebook at Writing Thriving. I look forward to connecting with you, and please reach out if you want to get in touch. Thank you for all your comments, likes, and subscribes. Really appreciate it. And I appreciate you. Keep yourself grounded during this supermoon in Pisces, and sending you lots of love.